Hello folks, today is Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. My name is Todor Vodov and this is the 28th episode of Keeping It Realistic. In this show, in collaboration with Chaos, we review up to 7 of the more interesting, more noteworthy projects shared in the Chaos Campus Facebook group within the last 14 days, talking about their strengths but also pointing out their weaknesses and suggesting eventual ways to improve them. We also like to discuss general topics around the group and the visualization field as a whole. This is why usually in the beginning of the show we talk about recent news, announcements, events, but also tutorials, tools and so on. And we do all of this as a live session so that you can actively participate in the discussion, interact with each other, with myself. So don't hesitate to say hi, voice your opinion, ask questions, or simply be active. With this out of the way, welcome everyone. Glad that we get to hang out together. Again, I hope you had good last 2 weeks since we last talked. And before we jump in and take a look at the Chaos calendar for the upcoming events, let's do what we usually do and take a moment to appreciate today's cover image. As you see, this time I have a different version of the cover image than the one that I shared yesterday because I don't know why. Because I just couldn't decide. Yesterday I liked the other version, today I like this one more. It doesn't matter in the end. What matters is that the works were contributed by Alessio, Abbas and Carolina. For Alessio and Abbas have been featured already multiple times. For Carolina is the first time, so congrats to her and congrats to the other two as well, of course. I really like how this one turned out. I don't know which version I prefer in the end, but I hope you like it too. And with this out of the way, we can actually jump in and let me show myself again. Jump in and talk about some upcoming events. So we'll take a look at the Chaos calendar when we see such events. The first one, it's an ongoing one. It started last December. It's the Arvis Masterclass with creative lighting. So if you follow this link down here, you will end up on this page where you can get some general information about this masterclass and about the upcoming dates. Next one is going to be not this, but next Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, 4 p.m. Central European Time, same as the time that this show started today. The topic will be mastering the color palette. Since Japandis, Candy and all those vanilla styles took over, I think we lost a lot of color when it comes to visualizations and imagery in general. So getting back some of those bold, nice color combinations is something that I think will make our works stick out more. So this topic here, mastering color palette, is definitely an essential one that I will not be missing, and I very much recommend you to also not do so. The event, you have 10 days to the event, so you still have a lot of time to think about some questions regarding the topic of colors, color palette. Write them down, and as soon as the event starts, just use the Q&A section in Zoom and ask Nikos, and most likely by the end of the webinar, he will answer your question. Use this because this is really, really precious. And remember, this is only a live online event. There is no recording out of it. So if you miss it, then it's just gone forever and that's it. Then there will be 2 more lessons. So there will be the final touch, the post-processing masterclass number 7, which will be in June. Then there will be a 2-month gap in July and in August. And then the final masterclass, Unveiling Brilliance competition showcase, will be on September 26th this year, and that will be it, so make sure not to miss those. Now let's come back here to the calendar and take a look at the second event which is approaching. It's on May 21st, so next Tuesday, a Tuesday in a week, same time as this show started, 4 p.m. Central European Time. It's an event, it's a free online webinar by Chaos. If you follow this page, you will end up here where you can register for this event. The topic is From Real Time to Photoreal, Connecting Architectural Designers and Arvis Artists. The speakers are Anna Ljubanova, who is project manager of V-Ray for Revit, and Daniel Monaghan, who is sales director, but also expert for AEC, AEC being architectural engineering and construction project management. So we have two very interesting experts here, especially when it comes to the topic of optimizing workflows between or across different software platforms. I think they have a lot of things to say, so I'll probably be watching this live next week. If you want to register, I'll just drop a link here in the comments. I see Amir is here, I see Daniel is here. Hello guys, glad to have you on the show. And yeah, let's take a look at the last thing, and this is the approaching Chaos Campus Live show, the next episode of which is going to be now this coming Thursday, so in 2 days, so May 16th, 4 p.m. Central European time, with a great guest, or guests better, I would say. I know who they are, but I won't tell you now. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I'm pretty sure that you really like this. So keep an eye on that as well. And with this, we are done with the news for today, and we can talk a bit about learning before we dive into the projects. Kacper joined us, and Abdi. Hello folks, glad to see you. Abdi, good that you're here, because we'll be talking about the sixth episode or the sixth lesson in the Tyflow for Arvis tutorial series by Abdi. You may know him as AS Art 3D and Motion Graphics. In this case, the topic is cloth inflation. This is low-key a topic that I kind of suggested, because truth is we cannot always only deal with those pre-made assets. Sometimes we need custom tailored cushions or pillows or just inflated stuff. And here Abdi shows us how we can do something like this. As usual, it's a great tutorial, and the knowledge that you can extract out of it is not only about Tyflow, but also there are lots of modeling tips that you can use in your everyday workflow. And if you ask yourself or think, you know, I don't currently need cloth inflation, what should I do with this? Then I can tell you what I do in situations like this. So I also don't need it right now. What I did is I went through the video, I watched it, I saw what Abdi is showing here, so that I know what Tyflow is capable of. Of course, I saw some nice modeling tips on the side. But yeah, I know what this is about. I gave Abdi a like. I'm also following him, or I have subscribed to his channel. I do this not for two reasons. First of all, it's my kind of saying thank you, because he puts a lot of effort into those videos, and he started doing those for us, for the group. So because he doesn't come from Arvis, but we are mostly Arvis, so he started looking for those sections between what he knows and what we need or what we do, and started this whole tutorial series. So I want to say thank you, because I really appreciate this. But the next thing is, if I give him a like, then I can easily find the video afterwards among the videos that I like. So he profits from it, I profit from it, we're all happy. Also, Abdi was having a lot of fun with Tyflow lately, because as you see here he was playing around with some cloth simulation, giving this Viking ship some wind for the sails, and yeah, this is just really cool. And again, if you think, well, I never visualized Viking ships, so why do I care? Well, in his case, it's the sail of a Viking ship. In your case, this could just be the curtain of your interior just moving in the wind, and I'm sure that this is way more relatable to you. So we cannot always, you cannot have a tutorial for like every single situation out there. You need to learn to extract the basics, sorry for that, yeah, learn to imagine how you can put them to use somewhere else. Here he was also furtherly experimenting. He sometimes or often actually likes to take stuffs out of the Cosmos library and do something with it. He already, as far as I remember, he took a swing and then made something out of rail clone, like a procedural swing, which is pretty cool. I think it was the second lesson out of this Tyflow for Archviz tutorial series. It was when he showed how he takes some, let's say, kitchen assets or some fruit bowls and stuff like this, and he fills them up in a new way, so he creates unique assets with the help of Tyflow. And in this case here, he took his egg chair, which is actually a patio furniture piece, something which is on the outside. So if you imagine you have an animation and you have those slightly moving tree leaves because there is a slight breeze. If you have something like this and it's completely static, then it won't look realistic, because this is a hanging chair. So if there is a slight breeze, this chair should also be slightly moving. And this is exactly what within 2.5 minutes Abdi showed us here how to do. And this is really cool. So big thanks to Abdi for sharing his knowledge with us. Now let's move on to something else. Let's talk AI. There is this tutorial on AI by Nuno Silva in collaboration with Vasilis from the VW Art Club. It is showing you how to increase realism of 3D images with the help of Magnific AI. Now, Magnific AI cannot be tested for free. So this is something that with the help of videos like this, you can see how it works. You can maybe take a look at the functionality of it, the user interface and so on, but also you can take a look at the workflow with Magnific AI. Is it something for you? Does it suit your own workflow and so on? And as you could see, I will go back to the beginning where there is this comparison. As you can tell, there is an improvement and visible enhancement. Even though the original image was actually already pretty good, the final one definitely looks more realistic. And while we're at the topic of AI, if you prefer the free version, so the stable diffusion route, then you may want to be interested. Let me just share this one, by the way. So yeah, if you prefer the free of cost solution, the stable diffusion way, there is this tutorial about image enhancement with the help of stable diffusion and Comfy UI by Adam Martin. It's another great tutorial about AI. You can learn something new here. Again, Magnific AI is great, but it costs money. Stable diffusion doesn't. So if you want a free solution, if you wanna try out at first before you decide if you want to invest money, I think this is a good way to start. So maybe you want to take a look at this one. I will share this in the comments as well. And I think that with this, within 14 minutes, we managed to go through all the news and learning stuff for today. Usually it takes longer, so I told you yesterday we won't be having such an incredibly long show today. It will probably still be around 2 hours or a bit less than 2 hours, but it won't be more, definitely not. Let me check the comments and then we can jump right in and start with the first project. Abdi Ahmed is here. We'll be talking about your works, man. Abdi says, you're more than welcome. Thank you very much, Theo, for mentioning them. It's really my pleasure. Because of you, I really used to fear Tyflow, and now because of you, I'm becoming more and more of a fan. And even though I mostly never actively use it, I keep everything that you show in those tutorials in my mind. And for example, I know that soon I'll be making a scene, a small exercise scene, where I'll be needing the ivy grove usage of Tyflow, and now I know where to find it because you explained it greatly. So now I'm confident that even though I'm not an active Tyflow user, I will be able to pull it off. So thank you too. Now let's take a look at the first project for today. It's a big one containing both exteriors and interiors, and on a pretty high level, admittedly. Abdi says, very glad to hear that. Well, this is really the truth. Let's see what Alessio has to say about his project. Hi guys, it's been a long time since I posted any work. This time I wanted to focus more on this personal project, trying to turn into practice all the advice I received from the group, recreating this house that really impressed me, so I spent something like 1.5 months to make it. I tried different setup of light to avoid making the images too monotonous. Of course, feedback is welcome. It's done in Cinema 4D, Corona 11, and a little post-production with Photoshop. There is a house reference. This is the original house that Alessio recreated. Before we take a closer look at it, let's briefly talk about the presentation of this project, which, as you may imagine if you watch the show, I'm a big fan of. It's really great description because we have so much info provided here. We have the project type, we have the backstory, we have the software combination used, the goal of the exercise. It's clearly stated that it's made after a reference, the reference is linked. This is really how you do it. As for the image presentation, it's also pretty good because we have various angles, but we also have different lighting scenarios, which just makes those images and the whole set look very different. They're very intriguing, very exciting. So we'll take a closer look at the images, but let's first inspect the original reference. What's important to know about it is that it is actually a render. If you take a look at this here, it says tools used, it's Blender, Lumion, Krita, Adobe Photoshop. Completion here, there is nothing like this, and status is concept design and development. So Alessio, you decided to recreate a render, which, as you know, is something which I usually don't recommend, because when you reproduce a rendering, you're recreating another artist's vision of reality. So there is this artist, and they kind of play around with reality in order to create their images, and then you take their images as if they were reality and make your own version of their reality, which is a version of real reality. So this is a bit of an inception, and I'm not a huge fan. I always recommend recreating photography or photo sessions rather than render sessions. But in this case, this is what you decided to do. The project itself, I understand, it's exciting, definitely. It's pretty cool. But yeah, it's always a bit dangerous to do something like this. You see here, there are lots of interesting images. There is some concept art, which I really like. And the sketches are really strong. So, now that we know the original reference, we can take a closer look at Alessio's work. And the general impression going through all of those images is that a lot of effort, love and care have been put into this work, and it definitely shows. Now, on the positive side, it starts always with the good stuff. On the positive side, I would say the house design is definitely an eye catcher, but Alessio says honestly didn't see it is a render. Well, this is not a good sign. I gotta be honest with you here, because before you recreate something, you really gotta deeply analyze it. So to its core, try to understand everything about it. And if you deeply analyze it, you will be able to tell. And also, taking a look at some of the images, you can also clearly tell. Just take a look at this interior. I mean, you see clear texture repetition and so on. Maybe it's just my trained eye after all these years, but yeah, it is a render session. Nevertheless, you did a good job, and we'll talk about the good stuff. So, again, the house design, definitely, let's go to this shot here maybe, definitely an eye catcher, but as this is a recreation, I think this is, and the design is already provided, I think we can skip this step and move over to the next step, which as usual is going to be the modeling. And your modeling, I gotta admit, is quite fine, especially given the scale of this project, because the usual situation is like this, that if, especially single artists, they gotta concentrate on the major aspect of a project. And the major aspect is seldomly the exterior part and the interior part. It's one of those. So if it's like mostly interiors and then you got to show a facade, then the exterior part is not so important. If it's mostly about the building form, the facades and so on, then the exterior part is the more important and the interiors are kind of secondary. In your case, however, I kind of have the feeling that you put the same amount of effort in both the exterior and interior parts, because both have a really decent amount of detail. So if we take a look here at the surroundings that you have created, there is a lot of detail here, and a good detail, something that you have definitely spent a good amount of time creating. But if we take a look at the interior, there is also a very solid amount of stuff, and everything looks clean and fine. So really, really respect for that. Also, the assets that you have used are mostly fitting, mostly nice. So this is also pretty good. Materials also look quite good. I can tell, first of all, they're pretty visually close to the original reference. And also, despite them partially covering really large areas, and these are areas that are usually difficult to deal with because of potential texture repetition, it shows that you actually did your best to avoid that. And it mostly actually also worked. And then the topic of lighting. And to me, this is one of the major qualities of your work. You said that you experimented with lighting in order for the images or the whole set to not be monotonous. Yeah, this really worked out because we have an exciting set of images. Just take a look at this one. Suddenly we have an overcast mood, like a very dramatic one. Then we have a sunset, then we have the sunny images, then we have an evening mood. So there is a lot of variety, which keeps the viewer interested. And I actually think that your lighting did a better job than the original one. Now let's talk about the not so good things, or maybe we will just skip them and just dive directly into the images. And if there is something which is not so good, then we will mention it while talking about a certain image. So let's start with the first one. This one doesn't have a direct equivalent among the shots that we see here. So it's just an image that you created. So we'll just take a look at it as a solitary image. What I see here is some really great modeling, also some great scattering on those green hills. The landscape looks natural, it looks convincing, it's not overdone. The greenery, in this case maybe the beigery, or the flora looks very typical for Greece. So we have this local authenticity, which is actually very important. The framing and lighting composition complement each other really greatly in this case, because they narrow down the focus area. We don't focus on the whole scene, we focus only on this brightly lit up area. And this is actually needed because otherwise we don't have strong contrast, neither tonal nor color contrast, to get the focus on this area here, because the inside of the house has warm lighting, as is the lighting around. The inside of the house is bright, as is the area around the house. So we don't have those contrasts which will make this building pop out and visually stick out so that we see it. So we definitely need those bright areas here that guide our eyesight to what we want to see, which is the building and how it is incorporated into those hills. Let's move on. The second shot is another one that doesn't have a direct equivalent among the shots that we just saw here in the original. But this is not an issue because I really like this shot. The surroundings definitely look amazing here. First of all, we have some great scattering. It's not only the plants, it's also some stones that we can see here and there. We have really good materials. Just take a look at this ground material. I'll just zoom on it a bit. This looks really realistic, great material. But also on the plants, just take a look at the translucency. This is great. And we have, of course, very beautiful lighting. First of all, it's very dynamic. You see how we have dark areas, we have bright areas. You probably achieved this with I don't know if you artificially created this, or this is the actual lighting because of the clouds, with sun and clouds or something, but it looks really great. it's almost dramatic. They produce some really good tonal contrast. Just take a look at those shapes here. This is beautiful. Or here the silhouette of the hills in front of the sky. It's awesome. And of course, I loved those highlights on the plants. This just something like this simply brings life to an image. The house fits harmoniously into the geometry of the hill, which is another plus point for this thing. On the negative side, I find it almost a bit of a pity that we don't see more of the house. It's kind of underwhelmingly lit. So this area here is kind of dark, so underexposed, whereas this area here is almost overexposed. It draws our attention to this corner here because we have a very, very strong contrast, but here actually nothing happens. We just have a wooden wall and that's it. So you may want to refine the lighting composition of this shot a bit until it becomes a bit more balanced, and then it's a really, really good one. But definitely keep things like this, the things that we see here, those highlights on the plants, they're just wonderful. Now we have the third shot, which does have an equivalent. We took a look at it just a second ago, and as I already told you, I prefer your version because, as you can see here, the original has quite poor materials. They look low poly. There is visible texture repetition. The curtain material here is way too thin, and generally this scene lacks detail. It's just those two pieces of art here and that's it. There are some unexplainable reflections here, so yeah, this isn't really a very good work. And at the same time, comparing to your version, which has very solid materials with good material properties and proper quality to them. Also, you have way more detail. Just take a look at all those sets here, which just provide the scene with this nice, relatable, lived-in feeling, because people do have stuff, right? Alessio says sun and sky. Yeah, thought so. So what we see here are the actual shadows by the clouds. This is cool. Anyway, back to the bedroom scene. So yeah, your version is definitely better. Where I have slight issues is a bit the design, because if you take a look at this, you see that on the right side we have almost nothing happening, and at some point we have the bed sticking out of the wall. And exactly at that moment, or at that certain area on the opposite side, we have the placement of this yellow chair, which makes for a very small and inconvenient pathway between the bed and the chair for people to go through. So yeah, when it comes to the general design or concept, it would be way more convenient if the closed parts of the drawers would be somewhere here, and this yellow chair would be somewhere closer to the camera, so that the bed and the chair don't interfere with each other, negatively impacting the walkways in this room. Regarding the concrete material, personally, I like this more friendly, brighter and warmer version of the colored concrete in the original reference. It's friendlier. It kind of resembles almost some sandstone, whereas yours looks a bit like cast in situ concrete, which is kind of rough and has this industrial loft vibe to it, which kind of doesn't correspond to the vacational mood of the villa. And there are some repetitions here. You can see it if we analyze it. There are some repetitions. It's not much, but there are always fragments of textures like this where you can easily see the repetition. And there are two ways to go about this. The one way is to change the texture, but then you have to remember to change it on every single map of the texture. So the reflection map, the glossiness map, the normal map, displacement, and so on. And it's a tedious process. Or just do it in the post-production. Just use the spot healing brush tool or the clone stamp tool and just remove things like this, because repetition always gives a rendering as a snitches the rendering, being a rendering and not a real photo. And the last issue I have here is the artificial lighting coming from those lamps. It looks very unrealistic, so maybe just give your light sources an IES profile or something like this so that the light produced here looks more authentic. And with this we can actually move on to the next shot, which also has an equivalent in the original. I'm not sure in which direction I have to go, so I'll zoom out. I think this is the one. Yeah, so your version is pretty close to the reference, and this is definitely a shot with a good vibe to it. It's easy to imagine just being there and having a good time and so on. In this case, I actually prefer the original framing because of those diagonals here. We have a diagonal shadow, we have a diagonal piece of wall, and those diagonals add some dynamic to the scene, which is very much needed because it's otherwise very heavy set. And in your case, I'm just missing those. And also the other framing kind of feels more balanced. Next topic here, which I don't like, are the sliding doors that you have chosen. Yours are very, let's say, common, very everyday like. And what we have here is this very modernistic, very cool villa. So I think it would be better if you used thinner and more elegant, just thinner black frames here that are barely visible so that they don't get so much attention as the current white ones do. And last but certainly not least, the wall art here. It doesn't fit, in my opinion. First of all, it's kind of bold and prominent. It's very contrasty. It's very saturated. The red is already given. You have it on the chairs here, so that's okay. But it kind of takes too much attention, and also the topic of it doesn't really fit the location because this is definitely Japan and we are here in Greece. Obviously, the people who own this villa or live there could just be huge Japan fans, and they also have a bonsai in front of this image. But still, I don't think it fits the vibe of the current villa. Now let's move on to the next shot. This one is again another one without an equivalent among the original shots, but it's a really good one. First of all, we have a nice change of the aspect ratio. So far, all the shots were in landscape mode, and suddenly we have this portrait mode, which makes the set way more interesting to look at. Also, we have some really good framing here. We have some fine, clear focus on the objects of interest. We have beautiful depth of field and blurriness on the other objects. We have nice details that make the scene feel lively, lived in, relatable. So I like this one a lot. That's why it also ended up on our cover image for today. Next is another shot which has an equivalent, and we'll go and compare. I think this is the one. And this is again another one of those cases where I actually prefer your version. Now, the original has this classic sunny Mediterranean villa shot, and yours is to me more impactful and kind of more exciting in general. We have this dramatic sky here. We see a lot of sky, and it's a dramatic one, which definitely packs a punch. And also adds kind of a tension and even some storytelling, like the calm before the storm. I like this a lot. Also, suddenly we have cold environment lighting. Like before, we only had this warm GI, and suddenly we had it cold, or let's say neutral, but it's actually rather cold, which makes for a big contrast to all the previous images, but it also makes for a great contrast to the warm artificial lighting of the villa. What you can improve about this one, first of all, it's the water surface. It doesn't look good. It just currently looks like ice or something. Those waves are way too small. What I recommend is I would just go with a mirror-like water surface. I think it would very nicely fit the situation in this case. Just work with a reference. Just Google something like I did here, villa, Greece, pool, evening, something like this, and you get tons of examples. And if you want to have some waves, then have larger waves. Next, it's the horizon line. This is something Flatson mentioned. Your horizon line currently is kind of sharp. And this is not really typical. Even if there is a big contrast between the sky and the water, the horizon line always looks kind of blurred. And in your case, this isn't the situation. So just go in Photoshop, blur it up a bit so that there is a smoother transition between the water border, the silver lining, and the albedo and the sky. And optionally, this is just an idea of mine, you can add some fire in this fireplace. I assume that this is a fireplace, so if you added some fire there, you showcase some functionality, and you definitely enhance the mood and make the lighting composition more interesting. So why not? Next we have this shot, which is another one with an equivalent. Let us quickly take a look at this. I think this is the one. Exactly. And here, again, I think that your version is the more interesting, the more exciting one. The reference shot, again, has this classic sunny Mediterranean villa atmosphere, which is almost over the top, almost too bright in this area. And in your case, it feels kind of more balanced and more interesting in terms of lighting. We have this beautiful sunset mood, which gives this laid back, almost romantic vibe, and which also harmoniously fuses the in and outdoor areas. Because if you take a look at this, the areas are very distinct. We have the outdoor, we have the terrace area, and we have the indoor area. And there's are two different areas, whereas here they're kind of harmoniously fused together, and I think this goes more towards what the initial concept of this villa is. So yeah, this is really cool, and now we can move on to the next one. This also has an equivalent. I think this is the shot. What I really like here about the original is this lamp, which provides some kind of a focused additional framing for this wall art here. This is pretty cool. You did get rid of this, but I think that your version is again the more cinematic and more interesting one. So because we have this very cinematic shot, it's not very informational, but it is really emotional. This is the type of shot that lets the imagination of the viewer play. So you show this sunset, you have this beautiful detail here, and what I start thinking of when I see this is, wow, I want to sit there with my family and we have a supper, we talk, and we just enjoy the sunset. And this is actually a great thing, because once people start thinking like this, they show interest in the object, and this is what you want to provoke with your images, right? And also this time the horizon line looks way better, maybe because of the distant haze, but it looks way more blurry. And also kind of more nicely and homogeneously connects to the sky. So what you achieved here, try to achieve on the previous shot. And then we end up at the last shot. Abdi says the lighting feels very natural and looks pretty real. I think Abdi is referring to this shot, and I very much agree with this. I really like your version here. And now we end up at the very last shot. There is an original here. This is one of those images that were artistically manipulated in the post-production to add some further dynamic through the motion blur. It is to enhance this special building form. I understand this. You can do something like this, even though I maybe even prefer your version because it's more realistic and this flowing form is still very much visible. There are some really good looking tonal contrasts here where the geometry, the very special looking geometry of this house really sticks out. The framing is good. The surroundings look nice. We concentrate on what we are supposed to concentrate because the focus is clear. So with all of this being said, I would say that those 1.5 months that you spent working on this were really worth it, Alessio, because now you can add a really complex and interesting project to your portfolio, and you can also show your clients that you are capable of dealing with not only sun and sky, but also different lighting scenarios, and that you know to make the best out of different moods. So you can work with overcast, you can work with sunset, you know how to do cinematic shots, you know how to do, close-ups and stuff like this. So yeah, great work. Just one recommendation for the future: next time, pay closer attention and recreate photography and not renderings. But that's it from me, and I think we can move on to the second work, which is a small but really nice project by Mohammed. He writes, "Hi, my new render, Villa Design visualization is by him. It's done in Max, Corona and Photoshop." Now the description is okay, we know the software combination, we know that you did the work and not somebody else. In future, gladly add some more info about the type of work. Is it a commercial one, an exercise, a recreation? Tell us about your goals, the challenges you faced, stuff like this. But presentation-wise, I really enjoy the different moods. The angle is the same, but the moods are pleasantly different. So yeah, let's take a closer look. And the general impression, it's simple, definitely, but it's a clean work and a nice one as well. Let's take a look at the good parts. First, the design seems to make sense. It's a house in the middle of the road. Modern, modernistic, nice materials. Everything seems to work. The modeling is pretty decent. The house has a good amount of detail, especially given the camera distance that we have. It doesn't really necessarily need more if you don't have closer shots. The plant and vehicle sets that you have used look really nice. The plants are quite cool. The car sticks out very positively to me because I like such cars, but it is also smartly chosen. It's an eye catcher for sure, but it's not over the top or so much over the top that it takes all the attention away from the house, or that you only look at the car and not at the house anymore. This is not the case here. It works, it just adds to the house, which is great. And definitely the grass looks amazing. So if you watch this at some point, I don't think you're here with us today, but if you watch the recording, gladly let us know which grass preset is this, because it looks really, really authentic. It's great. I think this is enough about the modeling. Now let's talk materials. Most of them look pretty nice. I really like the variation on those, I assume, wooden slats, because first of all, they give a lively appearance to the facade, and this randomness is also something very authentic. If you buy slats like this, they won't all be the same. This is just how it is. So once you implement them on the facade, it will probably end up looking like this. This is authentic and realistic. The street asphalt looks also pretty good, provides a scene with a realistic foreground. A lot of artists tend to neglect this because they put all the effort into the house and everything around the house, and then it feels like in the very last 2 minutes they just make the street and they just place some generic asphalt on it and call it a day. But the thing is, the foreground, especially if it's not a foreground that you blur out with depth of field, still belongs to the scene. So if your house is amazingly realistic, but your street looks like shit and is not realistic, then it drags the quality and the realism of the whole scene down. Simple as that. The color scheme, natural, authentic. I think everything fits harmoniously, especially on the second shot. We'll talk about it more when we talk about the lighting. And yeah, talking about lighting, I think this is probably one of the strongest parts of this work, because both the sunny and the sunset moods actually look pretty good. The sunny one is a simple one, but it's definitely effective. First of all, we have some really good tonal contrast. Just take a look at the form and the silhouette of the house and how nicely it sticks out. This is great. Also, it makes for a very interesting foreground because of the tree shadows here, and it's not only interesting and lively, it is also darker, and through this darkness the house gets to stick out more, which is great. And one final thing, but an important one, the architecture is easier to understand. I know that in recent times overcast scenarios tend to be very popular, but overcast scenarios aren't always the best solution. Even though some materials end up looking more realistic with them, or maybe the whole scene, they're not always the ultimate solution. In this case, for example, I'll show you something. So what we have here is a cantilever. This is this overhanging part of the house in the second floor, which overhangs above the driveway. I'll show you this example here. This is called the cantilever house, as you can see. And if you take a look at the wooden part up here, you don't see any shadow because we have something like an overcast scenario or the light coming from behind. So you can assume that this probably overhangs about 10 to 20 centimeters at max, right? But if you take a look at the shot down here, you see that it is probably a whole meter or even more. But you wouldn't see this because there is no shadow here. And with the help of the shadow here, even though we have a full frontal perspective, we can still see that there is a huge overhang of this cantilever part. So in this case, going for a sunny mood has been a smart decision, not only for the looks and for the general mood, but also for properly presenting this house. As for the sunset mood, I really enjoy the atmosphere of it. I really like how we have some of this yellow orange of the sunset in the back, and then we find this color again and again throughout the scene. So we see it here on the artificial exterior lighting, we see it on the interior lighting, and we even see it on the street. And this kind of makes the image look harmonious and very pleasant to look at. Framing is also very nice. You achieve some really sweet natural framing. However, those naked branches and those naked trees are a bit over the top because they don't make much sense. The scene looks like midsummer, and suddenly you have so many dry winter trees. So if it's a winter scene and you have so many trees like this makes sense. If it's summer, then it means that those trees are ill. Having an occasional dry tree among the leafy ones is great. It just brings variation. If you have so many, it's again some kind of a tree illness, and this is not really a good association. So what you can do is just use maybe different trees, because those also have kind of a very smooth branches, so unrealistically so. So maybe use different trees which have more leaves, and then you can always reduce the amount of leaves on the tree, so that you don't have overwhelmingly many leaves if you don't want to. Talking about assets, I think that the balcony and the interior area are quite empty. Now, you did put some token bed on the inside so that it's not completely empty, but it simply isn't enough. You see here, we see that it's lit up with it. We don't see a lamp, we don't see a wall art, some kind of a rack or wardrobe or whatever. Something like this we can also see here, but it's kind of empty, which makes the image look lifeless. Yeah, I mean, you have Cosmos at your disposal. Just take a few sets, place them on the inside, and it will immediately start looking more relatable and more lived in. And last but not least, let's talk about materials. So first of all, the sidewalk doesn't work as you've depicted it here. This grout here makes no sense. What you need here are some proper curbs. And also this, I assume, painted wood is not looking good. First of all, this bump or displacement is too strong. It makes it almost look like cast in place concrete. And I think the wood structure should be more recognizable as such, so the wood should look like painted wood and not like concrete. I will show you an example of mine. I have a client who builds everything with wood, so depicting the wood properly is very, very important to them. So I spend a lot of time working on this material, and as you can tell, doesn't matter which shot we're looking at, the wood looks pretty authentic even without having strong bump or displacement. It has its wood structure, and it's just gray. It's just, let's say, the saturated, grayed out wood. If you paint it, you can hide some of this structure. You can do it with a composite material, but still try to keep the wood still look like wood and not like cast in place concrete. And I think that was it. That was it, because other than that, I really like this project. It's nice, small but solid. And so far, I have only seen interiors of yours. So if this is your first try at an exterior, this is an incredibly good start. So I'm looking forward to your future projects for sure, dear Mohammed. Okay, I'll check the comments. Alessio says, I will surely do the community and your review helped me a lot achieving my results. I'm really happy to hear this, Alessio. I know you're one of those who actually listen to the feedback and profit from it, and it definitely shows. Just, again, make sure to recreate photos and not renderings. Carol, I really enjoy how deep and detailed your reviews are, Tel. Yeah, we'll see about this. Thank you. But you're next. So we'll talk about your work. To the others, folks, Carolina is a very, very interesting artist who's experimenting a lot, whose view of things is kind of different to ours. I wouldn't say she's very much into archviz, but just in visualizing. And that's very interesting. And today she's sharing another interesting work with us, and I really wanted to talk about this one. Now, the description of it is Crosswalk 3ds Max Vantage. Now, Carol, you really need to watch the show more often. If you did, you will know that this is not a great description by the standards of this show. You have mentioned the software combination, which is great, and even have given a title to your work, which is also pretty awesome. But what I'm missing as an info is your goals with this project. And of course, the type of project, I assume it's a personal project, because seldomly commercial work looks like this. But still, your goals, what did you want to achieve? The project background, some technical info, why not? I know that you're very much into this, you're experimenting a lot with Vantage, making things possible that aren't like immediately possible with Vantage. So hearing some technical info on your side will always be interesting, same as with Abdi. Also, if you do a work like this and it's based on a reference, as this is the case, as you told me afterwards, please make sure to mention this, make a link or post a reference somewhere so that people know about this. It's just the right thing to do. And you can always tell us everything else that you consider interesting, or the challenges you faced and stuff like this. Also, you especially are some very sensible artists who is willing to share her knowledge and experiences and emotions even. I like this a lot. So please do so. Of course, this is the first project of yours that we talk about. So this is probably the first time you hear about this. But in future, please spend some time and tell us more about your project. This is very, very appreciated in this group. Now, the general impression of this scene, which my mom seems to like a lot, this is her commenting there, is, I wouldn't say it on the negative side. I would just start with this. This is definitely non-conventional rendering. I think we can all agree on this. It's not really following the general compositional rules. It doesn't even have straight verticals, right? At the same time, however, this is the positive thing about it as well, because I think this is a really cool example of street photography where rules are often deliberately broken, because street photography celebrates the beauty of imperfection by trying to capture the raw energy and vitality of everyday situations, such as this one. So let's start talking about the good parts of this work. So first of all, I think we can all agree the scene looks pretty realistic. Why? Mostly because of the good combination of good modeling, realistic texture work, nice lighting, and last but definitely not least, is one of the major points actually, because of the countless imperfections in all of those areas, modeling, texturing, and lighting. Now, let's talk about the modeling. The modeling is very good, has a good amount of detail, both close to the camera and far away from it. And let's concentrate more on the imperfections here, because I think that the imperfections are the main thing about this work. So, first of all, let's take a look at the girders up here. You see, they don't look copy-pasted or instanced. It looks like every girder is on its own and has its own thickness and length and all of this. Next, let's take a look at those ledges or the grout here. They are uneven, they are imperfect. Now let's take a look at the interiors. Every interior is different, as it is in real life. If it's not a hotel where every room is the same, then every interior in real life is simply different. So here to the left we have some kind of a stove, I assume, with a frying pan on it. Here this could be a bakery, I don't know what this is. Here we see a rack, here we don't see anything. And this is very, very realistic. And then we have the dirty floor. We have scattered leaves, we have dirt, some small twigs and stuff like this. This is typical for the city, even for clean cities. When it's, let's say, autumn or this time of the year when there are strong winds or something like this, then there is stuff like this on the floor, and of course after rain too. Now let's take a look at the materials that look very, very authentic. So first, I would say that generally speaking, the materials look good and have easily perceivable material properties. So you take a look at a material and you know how it feels if you were to touch it, so to speak. We have some really good looking displacement. We have no visible texture repetition. Again, texture repetition is always the killer of realism, or one of the quickest killers of realism. Also, we have great use of decals. I assume these are decals and dirt maps. And given that you are here now, I would ask you to make a tutorial on this if you feel like it. Don't feel pressure to it. But if you want, you obviously know your way around making things look the way they do here. So why not make a tutorial? I think that we in this group will love to see something like this. And if you feel like it, please be our guest and do a tutorial about how you use decals or dirt maps and everything else you do in order to achieve photorealistic, non-repetitive textures with all their imperfections. Let me check the comments. I see you say, yes, Theo, I'm very sorry. I tend to be a little bit hidden in the dark. Yeah, you gotta come out of there just for the moment that you share your work, and then you can crawl back. I have to share more details. Thanks for the advice. Yeah, always welcome. Now, let's take a look at the imperfections here. So what we have are obviously leakages. I hope you see them. Let's zoom in a bit. We have leakages, we have dents, we have weathered looking materials, and we have the wet floor, which obviously breaks the monotony of a large floor space and makes everything more interesting because it also adds some reflections and so on. And now let's talk about the lighting and framing, which are very authentic in their randomness in this image. So the imperfections when it comes to the framing, very obviously we have no straight verticals. Almost every rendering out there that we see has its straight verticals, but here the verticals are very visibly not straight. Also, what we have regarding the lighting are very different looking interior lighting. So you see this one here is very brightly lit. Then we have the bakery, this is what I call it, which has a different type of lighting but still a bright one. Then we have this, probably an apartment up there, which has more dim lighting, and here the light is turned off, and this is how it is in real life, right? Also we have partial and overexposure. And now let's think about this for a moment. So what you're trying to recreate here is a street photography type of shot. Now, if you take a shot in the evening and you don't want everything to be very dark and only the lit up areas to be nicely visible, you have long exposure times. When you have long exposure times, the aperture is closing slower, and when it does, it lets more light in. When it lets more light in, it makes the darker areas be brighter, but it makes the bright areas be overexposed. So this is a natural occurrence with cameras, and this is what we see here and here and here. And this, in terms of reproducing a street photography shot, is something realistic, even though we usually try not to have it in our scenes. And then we have another piece of randomness. We have this lantern, which would normally be a source of light close to the camera, but it's not turned on. Why? Because in real life, light bulbs just burn out from time to time, and then the lanterns remain dark. That's it. So all of this so far has been great. Now let's take a look at what can eventually be improved upon or tweaked. So first of all, what I don't quite agree with is this lantern on the edge here, and let's talk about why. And the topic here is composition. If we take a look at the original, I will just open this here. It's not a huge photo, but yeah, you said that the original was in an amateur photography group about your city. I don't know what response this image got from the community there, but I can imagine that people liked it. And let me tell you why you shouldn't be having this one here. Now, in the original, you see it here. If I scroll down, we can actually see the thumbnails of your work and the original one. And in the original, what you have is this storytelling through light. So we have this dark foreground. Of course, there is a window here because we can look into this window. This is a point of interest. And then we have this gradient here, which is from bright to dark. Where is it bright? It's bright around the corner. And this is the exciting part of this image. We don't know what's around the corner. Yeah, maybe the people in your city do, because this is the area that they frequent every day. But most people looking at this photo, they don't know what's waiting for them around the corner, but it's lit up, so something is happening there, right? And this is the storytelling. This is the raw power of this original image, is what is happening around the corner. Do I go there and then there is a festival? Is there a murder? I don't know, but something is happening there. And this is a part of those photographic rules that we talked about in the beginning that you don't like so much following. If you have this light here, you are interfering with this storytelling of the original image, and now I want to see what is here, I want to see what is here, and my focus is kind of disturbed. This is not good. Let me show you an example coming from computer gaming. So, you know, when I was a kid and I was playing computer games, the hardware was very limited, so computer games were, as my dad called them, corridors. It was just like a corridor, and you just follow the corridor in a straight line, and if the corridor takes a right turn, you take a right turn. This was the only way. That was it, right? But nowadays, we have this strong hardware, we have these very capable render engines like Unreal and so on for real time. So when there is a scene, let's say you're a soldier in the jungle, right? You don't only have a corridor in front of you, you have the whole jungle. And in order not to get lost, or you have, let's say, a city and there are many streets there, and in order not to get lost, game designers use some of those tricks from those general photographic rules that have proven to be good over centuries, you know, in order to lead the people playing, the player, to where they want the player to go. So here in this example from Metal Gear, you see there is a fenced area, and at first glance you don't see where the openings and those fences are. But with the lights, with the fires burning next to the openings, you see those bright areas and you know something is happening there. A good, maybe a bit over the top example is also this one. Take a look at this one. This is a city, there are many streets, there is a lot of things happening outside, but you have this parked police car with its headlights shining towards this small street. And then you know, this is probably the area of interest. This is where I need to go. And this exactly is what happens here around the corner. This is where the light is. This is where I want to go to know what happens. And if you put an additional light source here by the edge, you're taking away from this storytelling, and you don't want this. So yeah, the next thing is this tree here. In original, I actually like how the tree is very desaturated, almost black. In your case, it's almost too saturated, too happy, takes away from the gritty atmosphere that you otherwise very much enjoy. I know this. So just desaturate the leaves and maybe reduce the number of them. Just use a multi-map on the opacity slot of the tree, of the leaf material, and then you will be able to reduce the amount of those. And maybe give the walker here some slight motion blur. And that would be it. I really like this work, and it was a pleasure talking about it, and it's also a pleasure having you in this group, because your works are different and interesting, and it's always great to not only talk about architectural visualization but also motion graphics or something like this. And it's a technically very strong work, but it's also at the same time emotional and impactful. However, as a piece of advice to conclude this whole work, I know you are somebody who, instead of rigidly adhering to predefined rules, prefers to a more initiative, intuitive, and instinctive maybe approach to creating images, and that's cool. However, in order to convey a more powerful narratives and evoke deeper emotional responses in your viewers, I would suggest trying to at least partially apply some of those general photographic rules, because again, these have been rules that have been there for centuries already, and they have proven to always work and have a certain influence on people, like the brightest areas being the ones that we look at first, and something like this. So keep your own vision of the world. You don't have to make some glossy catalog like interiors. This is not what I'm saying. Do what you like. Street photography, documentary photography, things like this that break the rules, but keep at least some of the rules, because otherwise there is always the option of trying to going into the hipster direction. You remember the hipsters, they weren't really liked, and the reason for this was not the way they dressed, because if you didn't like them because of their clothes, you wouldn't like your own grandparents, for example, because they were wearing the same stuff. It was because they wanted to be different for the sake of being different. They weren't different. They were like, I will do everything just on the opposite side so that people think I'm cool because I'm different. Seen like this, you can just take this human here and you can just flip him upside down so that his head is by the ground and his feet are in the air. You do you can do whatever you want. You have the absolute artistic freedom. However, at some point it may turn into something which is too much, which is just being different for the sake of being different. So if you want to keep being different, but still reach out to the emotionality of more people, try to keep some of those photographic, compositional, and so on rules intact in order to achieve that. I see you have a response. You're absolutely right about compositive rules. I learned a lot after listening to you, Theo, so thanks a lot for your words. This was an absolute pleasure, Carol. Looking forward to your future works. Now, let's continue with the fourth work for today. It's by Abbas. Actually, he submitted two works. We'll be talking about the second one, but we can take a brief look at the first one. It's called Center of Calm, and I must admit that I really dig this title. Center of Calm just sounds great, like a place to be. And I must admit that the images that I see here really fit this depicted situation. Definitely an interesting project with some good complementary color scheme. We have those lushly green surroundings, and then in contrast we have the beige and the saturated orange of this center of comb. This is pretty cool. I also enjoyed seeing you, Abbas. I don't know if you're here today, seeing you experimenting with different moods, with different times of the day. This evening shot is pretty sweet, by the way. On the negative side, I don't think that the logistics are quite thought through here, because I think that the only way to reach this center of calm is to swim there, and I'm not sure if it will be a big pleasure for the people who are there to sit with their wet dripping clothes on those sofas. Other than that, it's pretty cool. But again, we wanted to talk about this second project, not the first one. So yeah, let's do this. I see Ahmed says something. I really appreciated your in-depth feedback for projects you mentioned. I really enjoyed this webinar. Why do you speak in past tense? We're in the middle of it. Your work is yet to come. It's the next one. So stay tuned. And of course, jokes aside, thanks for your words. Now, let's see what Abbas has to say about his project. It's named Sky Garden Sanctuary. This bathroom design features one open sky view with lots of greenery like plants and grass, creating a peaceful vibe. It feels like a serene oasis, blending nature with modern comfort for a refreshing experience. It's done in 3ds Max and Corona, and you can take it higher. You can see higher quality of this work on Behance. Now, it's a nice description on its own. It's great to know the idea behind the concept, the software combination. What I'm missing here is the project type. So I asked if this is a commercial work or an exercise or recreation, and Abbas told me later that it's a recreation, and we see no indication of this up here, and this really isn't cool, dear Abbas, because you should know better. We have talked about your works multiple times in this show already, so you know this part, and you should definitely do better in this regard. As for the image presentation, it looks really good to me, visually consistent, and we have two really nicely varied angles that we will now take a closer look at. Now, as a general impression first, on the positive side, it looks a bit like an advertisement for a bathtub and this freestanding bath mixer. There is nothing wrong with that, because it looks like a good advertisement for a bathtub and a mixer. Design-wise, the scene is pretty cool. Gotta admit this. I don't know how much sense it makes to have this open roof here, but it's a place that I definitely gladly take a bath at, and I don't even like taking baths, and maybe the one or the other involuntary shower when it rains. Modeling-wise, the modeling is really solid. I really like how you made this palm tree actually fit within this confined space, and I see no clipping of it through the walls whatsoever. The main assets, the bathtub and the mixer, look great. Really, really fine. Those ground cover plants are nicely scattered, look pretty cool. The other plants as well. Material-wise, we have a beautiful color palette. It's complementary on the one side, but at the same time it's so desaturated that it's more harmonious rather than contrasty. And the shaders look really fine. I really like them. I see no repetitions apart from this area here. And I think that the materials here really add to the leisure, peaceful vibe that you describe in your text. The lighting, to me, is one of the major qualities here. First of all, we have some awesome tonal contrast. Let's just start here and take a closer look. So we have dark, bright, dark, bright, dark, bright, dark, bright, dark, bright, dark, bright, dark. So, you know, this constant change, these constant tonal contrasts make the scene feel vivid and really lively and exciting to look at, despite being, you know, just a still image. Also, we have some really awesome gobo effects. So we have the natural gobo that comes from the plants that we see here. And then, of course, we have this beautiful design gobo, as Nikos calls it, which is coming from this branch ceiling that we have up here and produces some really lively stripped shadows. They're awesome. The framing works in both shots. On the first one, we have this central perspective, which is kind of pleasantly monumental. And then we have the second shot, which is just an amazing project shot. What's not so good, again, talking about the design and the open ceiling here, I think it's a bit questionable in terms of functionality. So you're obviously fully dependent on the weather. Where there is a thunderstorm, you just can't use parts of your bathroom. So a possible solution would be to add some just very elegant glazing, which fits the aesthetics of the architecture here. Just a thin black frame with some glass, and that's it. Also, this window here, it seems to have a full frontal view on the bathtub. Now, a bathtub is a place where we are usually naked and we enjoy some privacy. And this looks a bit difficult, so in this case I would just probably recommend just putting a lot of dense greenery on the outside of the window, so that it states that, yeah, there is a window here, but it's more for ventilation rather than for, passerby to just look inside at somebody who's taking a bath. Now let's talk about this pool here. It doesn't seem fully concepted. So if this is a plunge pool, then it needs maybe some kind of a ladder or some steps leading into it. By the way, if you don't know, this is a plunge pool. This is something really, really cool. It might seem pointless, but it's actually very cool. If it's just for decoration, maybe add some more decoration to it. So maybe step stones leading to the bathtub, or some plants, or even koi fish. I don't know, something like this. You see there are some river stones here at the bottom, or some fish, something like this. I think it would be cool. Where are we? Again, and if alternatively, you can turn this into a Zen garden. Why not? A Zen garden would definitely fit the vibe of this space. Just imagine you have something like this here in front of your bathtub. It would be really, really cool. And definitely, if it remains as a water surface, definitely add caustics, because we have some direct sunlight hitting the water surface, and some caustics will make the dark sides of those columns really look even cooler than they do now. But in conclusion, talking about the work itself, it's really good. As for that deceptive description leading to think that this is an original work and not a recreation, this is definitely a no-go. Please don't let it happen again, because we're here a community of friends. We help each other, we support each other, we don't lie to each other, okay? And now we reach Ahmed's work, or better, works, because while Abbas shared 2 works in the last 14 days, Ahmed shared 3. So we will be talking about the last of the works he shared, but I once again want to briefly mention the other 2 ones as well. Oh, Amit joined us. Let me read his comment. Hi Theo and hi all. Sorry for being late. I and my daughter are in the process of making a dollhouse for her. 3.5 feet, my 3 feet, my 1.5 feet. I don't know how much this is in centimeters, I gotta admit. It's a challenge for me as well, as excitement as well, since she told that after designing so many interiors, oh yeah, I see where this is going, I should make it on my own rather than buying it online. Well, she's right, and now you have a real cool challenge in front of you, and those times with the kids doing something like this, they are so precious and they are so quickly gone. So be excited about it and just enjoy it, and don't apologize for being late for the show. You can always watch the recording, man. Nevertheless, I'm glad that you're here. So Let's start with the first work by Ahmed, which is called Abandoned Island, and it's a very adventurous project with some really nice backstory. I asked Ahmed about it, and he told me that it's inspired by games, by movies such as the Pirates of the Caribbean series, but also by his love for 17th and 18th century ships, which I share. I really find them to be extremely beautiful. And this is definitely a scene with a lot of potential to it. However, it still needs a lot of work. First of all, the scaling seems kind of off. If you take a look at the buildings here and the ships, something it doesn't feel quite right. I feel that the islands or maybe the buildings are kind of small. Secondly, the visual style here isn't consistent. We have kind of realistic water. Then we have those rocky islands that seem to be, I don't know, either photogrammetry or maybe something which has been extracted out of Google Earth. And then we have those sandy islands that look almost cartoonish. The composition also doesn't quite work. Generally, having a big ship in the front so that we can enjoy the beauty of the ship is something that makes sense. However, you have this nice, interesting bay area here, and you have parked the ship in front of it. And here, where nothing happens, there is no ship. So obviously, it would be better if the ship was somewhere here, for example. And your modeling definitely needs more precision because currently some of the ships and the boats seem to be submerged, or maybe you made something like a wave, but it's visually not clear. So yeah, this one definitely needs more work put into it, but it's an interesting one. Next, the second work is what you call the cyberpunk train restaurant. I'd rather call it a steampunk, but because for cyberpunk you need more neon and more dirt and rubbish and so on. And this is apart from this is an incredibly interesting topic for three reasons. First of all, it's a train render, which is great. Second of all, it's a train restaurant render, which is something different and even greater. And all of this in a steampunk style, which makes it even cooler. And this is another scene with a lot of potential. And this time, it's way better implemented because the color scheme works, the materials are definitely headed in the right direction. For steampunk, you usually have this gritty, kind of vintage or weathered metal in combination with brass or gold as highlights, what you already have here. The design is also headed in the right direction, but again, this also needs more time in the oven. So, first of all, it must be properly finished. What we have here, for example, is we have this fireplace and the chimney leads into the space, rendering it absolutely necessary because the chimney should be leading outside of this wagon. Then we have the tables being too close to each other, which makes the functionality of them be very questionable. You see here, you won't even be able to pull this chair because it's already clipping through the wall. And also it gives the whole room a very cramped feeling. We have this glossy podium here, which generally looks interesting, but at the moment it's kind of pointless because it has no visible function other than to hold this grandpa's clock. Also, there is nothing outside the train. And also you may want to add some additional steampunk elements. Nevertheless, I hope that you keep working on this one because it's very, very interesting. It has a ton of potential to it. Maybe get some inspiration from photos and from AI. Why not? Yesterday, I just took your scene, put it into Crea AI, and this is what came out of it. It's a bit of a small image, but as you can see, this looks very steampunky. This looks very atmospheric. It's quite cool. I enjoyed it a lot. So maybe you can experiment a bit with AI to get a bit more specific ideas about the concept of the further concept and work on this scene. But yeah, it definitely does have a lot of potential. And now we reach the third project, the actual work that we want to talk about today. It is called V-Ray. That's it. And that's not really a good description, let's be honest, because it's really care and loveless. Um, it's like cooking a meal, and then instead of putting it nicely in a plate, decorating it, and then politely giving it to somebody to enjoy it, just throwing it into a plate and then throwing the plate to your client or to your whoever is going to eat it to just start eating, right? You see the difference. You have already put in the work into your, working on those two images. Now respect your own work, your own time invested, and give it a proper description, okay? So, talk about the project type. I asked you, this could easily be a commercial work. In this case, you said it's a personal exercise. That's okay. Talk, if it's a personal exercise, what were the things that you wanted to exercise on? What was the main goal of this? What software combination did you use? V-Ray, okay, but on your first work, you mentioned both SketchUp and 3ds Max. How do I know which one you did this one in? So please in future make proper descriptions. Tell us about you decided to make an exercise. You spent days working on it or hours working on it. Then you can invest another 2 minutes to tell us more about it, because this way we will understand more, we can learn from each other, we profit from each other, and also the feedback that is given to you can be more specific. I see Amit says something, the texture on the roof is different than the outer roof. Some geometry is low poly because of the sharp light, the glass floor merges. You're probably talking about the this one, the steampunk train. Yeah, there is a lot of work still to be done, but it still has a lot of potential to it. And once done right, and cool, this could be something really, really different that's quite unique and really sticks out among the tons of bedrooms and living rooms that we see on a daily basis. So yeah. Now back to this work. Let's talk about the first impression. I don't think this is the best looking one among the three projects that we just took a look at. I think that the prize for best looking one still goes to the steampunk train. But this is definitely the one that you've put the most thought and effort in. Now let's review it, taking a look at the good parts first. So you're here in the comments, I saw you. So yeah, if you're still here, gladly, if you have something to say, please do so. You're always welcome to. So design-wise, seems like everything makes sense, seems functional. I don't know what else to say. Maybe the cypress tree here is a bit in the way. It looks like it's planted on the walkway. It's not really convenient for people who just want to take a walk here. But apart from that, it's, it works. The modeling also seems quite solid. The house looks good, has some detail to it. It's also great that you have hinted some interior and some balcony furniture, because this makes for this lived-in feeling, which is very relevant. And remember, even if you don't you have put some rattan furniture there, and let's say some potential buyers of this house take a look at this. If you don't have anything there, it just feels lifeless to them. If you have the rattan furniture and they don't like rattan furniture, they will be like, this looks so old school, I want some sleek, modern, whatever stuff. But them interacting with your images and already imagining what type of furniture they will be placing on their balcony is already a great win, because it seems that like they're already playing with the thought of buying this and putting furniture there and so on. And this is exactly what you want to provoke in order to bind people who are potentially interested in this object to it. The surroundings also seem pretty okay. I very much enjoy this small, sweet scene here where we have the bench, the street lamp, and the rubbish bin. It's kind of sweet. Kind of adds some urbanism and some everyday whatever feeling to the whole scene. It says it should be made community standards that every post should have appropriate description for our fellow friends to know what exactly it is, that they can give feedback accordingly. Yeah, it's not only the feedback. Sometimes you just want to read up upon something and you think, oh, this is how they did it, or oh, this is the software, or no, this is done in Corona, or no, this is done in V-Ray or in Vantage or whatever. So just the more information, information is precious. Ideas are precious. These are the things that we need more of. So the more information, the better. I mean, there are situations where the information can be too much, like cooking recipes nowadays. Sometimes I wanted to bake a cake for a fest for my daughter just a few days ago, right? And I was just looking for simple recipes for cakes, right? And I found a page with some nice recipes, but there was such a long introduction about where this woman came from, where her family came from, how they traveled from one country to the other, and how among this travel, or while they were traveling, they were getting cultural ideas about cooking from there and there and there. And there was just so long paragraphs that I had to scroll down so much in order to get to the fucking recipes. So recipes, this wasn't good, right? But in a group like this is an educational community. If you talk about a project, your challenges, your ideas, your goals, everything around it, then it's cool. Ahmed says this project was a practice on an advanced lighting techniques and more detailed scattering with greenery. The project is done in SketchUp and V-Ray with some modifications in Photoshop. It takes a couple of hours. And this is already a really cool description. You know what you were after, so that we can specifically talk about it. This is awesome. It says, and ideas give birth to more ideas, short description, but up to the point. Up to you. Some people prefer short, informative description where all the information is really compressed. Other people are talkative, like myself. I write long paragraphs. The way you prefer it, just provide this information in a way. But I absolutely agree. Ideas give birth to further ideas. That's the truth. Now let's continue here. And materials, I think that materials are okay. Every surface has its respective material. That makes sense. I like how this facade shader has some subtle structure to it. This is exactly as it should be. I often see artists overdo it and make facades really splotchy, which looks like a bad paint job. And this is definitely something you don't want for a newly established building. But some subtle structure visible here and there is just the right amount. So you did great in this regard. Also, you said it's advanced lighting techniques. So let's talk about lighting. And the lighting works, especially on the second shot. It has some very, very pleasant atmosphere, which by the way goes also for the framing. The framings on both shots do work. However, and now we go into the not so good part of the work. They're quite sameish. So we see this front view, and then you go like 3 steps to the right, rotate the camera a bit, and then we see the second shot, which makes it almost obsolete. It's true that we see a bit of the side facade, but that's all. So I think the general idea is not bad. It's just the execution is just too sameish to the first shot. So what you can do here, first solution is maybe get closer. Maybe get closer to this bench as if you're somebody who's sitting on this bench, and then take a look at the house. If you have a strong field of view, a strong FOV, then it could become a quite dramatic shot. Alternatively, you can go further away. You can place the camera in, let's say, among the branches of a tree, so that you have something like this in the foreground, obviously with depth of field, so that it's blurry. And then you can concentrate or focus your camera on the house. This way, you will make the house feel more nature-bound. Third alternative is that you go closer to this entrance area so that you show the viewer what's happening on the inside. And talking about this entrance area, it's too dark currently, and walkway like this, which leads to the main entrance of the house, should actually be properly lit, because it should safely guide visually, but also like in real life conditions, should safely guide the residents as well as the guests of the house to the inside of the house. So what you can do to counter this is you can just put some lighting on the underside of this overhanging second floor here so that it lights up, and this will add also to your storytelling as well, because it will be visually guiding the viewer to where the main entrance actually is, because it's not immediately visible. Talking about the lighting, the day scene looks kind of strange. First of all, it has this blue tint on it. This probably, if you used an HDRI, then you have to desaturate it. If you use Sun and Sky, desaturate once again, because this is just too cold. Maybe your white balance is off. If it's try to work with 6500 white balance value for a neutral shot, and or you can make it warmer with if you go for 7000 or something, but this one looks like it's around 5000 or something, and it's very cold for such a day shot. And the major problem with the day lighting is that you seem to work with a very high sun position, and this is something which is very, very difficult to work with, and I'll show you why. Take a look at those examples here. You see how unrealistic they look. Those poles, for example, or those one here. This shot is taken at a moment where the sun has been orthogonal to the ground, like 90 degrees to the ground. So it's directly above the poles, and this is why they don't throw any shadow and look so artificial, like an old computer game where hardware just couldn't support shadows, right? And what you see even more is, even though we have such a bold and strong sun, these poles aren't actually nicely lit. They are kind of dark. And this is exactly what you have in your scene here. We can tell by the shadow of the car that your sun position is quite high, almost, again, 90 degrees. And this is why it doesn't work. If you rotated the sun and lowered it a bit so that it falls onto this facade, the facade will light up, and it will make a great tonal contrast to the surrounding sky. If we go back to Muhammad's project here, take a look at this tonal contrast. You see the sky, and you definitely clearly see the contours of the house. In your case, this isn't the situation. Here we have the blue on the facade and then the blue on the sky, and we're missing this tonal contrast which makes the house stick out. Now let's talk about the materials. Now, the lit up interior, let's start here. The lit up interior is a good idea, but it doesn't look right because the perspective doesn't match. So we are below floor level, but we still see the floor. It looks like you took an interior of yours, gave it some self-illumination, placed it behind a window and call it a day. And this is generally a good approach, but not the right one. What you need are parallax maps, the so-called OSL maps, the open shading language maps. I don't want to promote any. I myself use V-Parallax. These are those types of maps that are just on a plane, and you can render them from different angles and they adapt. Be aware, if you're a V-Ray user with Corona, parallax maps used to have big issues. I don't know how it looks like in the meantime. Nevertheless, I think this would be a very good solution for a situation like this. You can have two different interiors, like a bedroom or a living room and a kid's room here, and it's easily done, and it saves a lot of render resources as well. And as far as I know, there are no issues with V-Ray. Next are the car windows. The car windows look artificial. It's like some kind of an aquarium glass, because you can clearly see into the car. Usually with strong sun like this, car windows look, as you see here, they look dark. It's true that also lots of car windows are tinted. What you can do here is make your car windows more reflective, tint them a bit. If you want to know how to do it, go check the Kel's docs, and here there is a topic called how to make glass with V-Ray, and here there is a video. The basic settings are explained, and there are lots of examples about here we have glass, here we have tinted glass, here we have frosted glass, and so on. So the Kel's docs, once again, let me recommend this to you. They are amazing source of information. I don't know who puts these things together, but this person or those people deserve a raise, because this is just amazing. When I need something, information about a material, how to do something, this is the first source of information I check in the meantime. Because again, this is not just dry text. There are great explanations, examples, even videos, as you can see. So I'll just paste the link here. Amit says that the street lights being turned on during the day is a no-go. Well, if you ask Nikus, this is not the case. Nikus is for always turning all the lights on. If you have lights turned on, like up here, make sure that there is some visible light source, because in this case it looks like, I don't know, just some holy light coming from the sky, because there is no visible light source. And interestingly enough, you have those lights turned on here on the day shot, but on the evening shot they're not there anymore. But yeah, we're not talking about lighting anymore. I think that on the evening shot the lighting is already pretty cool. You just need to add some lighting here leading to the main entrance. On the day shot it's a matter of taste. It's more realistic if you don't have lights turned on during the day. I agree with Amit here. And generally speaking, while we were talking about your materials, invest more time and effort into them, because currently some of them look almost cartoony, like this concrete material here on the wall. Others are kind of over the top, like this walkway. It's very overly weathered, if you ask me. Third materials look kind of overscaled, like the asphalt texture here. Because without good materials, you won't be having good final outcome. There are things that you can compensate for, like modeling, for example, but lighting and materials have to be perfect, or as photorealistic as it gets for a photorealistic final result. And with this, let's conclude your work, because we still have to talk about some inspirations. From the three works that we talked about, the three works of yours, I would say that you're definitely enthusiastic about rendering, dear Ahmed. And this is a good thing. This is a great base to build upon. However, maybe instead of working on tons of projects, just pick one and concentrate on it and make it perfect and then share it. You remember the project we started, Alessio's project. He said he worked for 1.5 months on those images, but the quality is there and he can now profit from it. Just making 50 projects and hoping that quantity is more important than quality just won't cut it, because in the end it's always the quality that decides. If you want to give yourself some, let's say, daily challenges, if you remember, I told you about Fabian Oberhammer that I listened to live on the Unboxed event, Chaos Unboxed event in Berlin. He said he gave himself daily challenges, but they were mostly more simple. Also, we don't know his situation. Maybe it's like this, that he just gets up at 6 a.m. in the morning, drinks Red Bull the whole day, and then goes to sleep, which is an unhealthy lifestyle and will bite his ass later in life. Maybe he's just a genius and does something like this in 1-2 hours. We never know. So make it according to your own life. Make sure to keep your mental and physical health at a high point, that you maintain your relationships and your personal life and so on. But if you are into daily challenges, then start small and simple. Make something looking like this one, for example. This is just a simple scene. Make it perfect and then move on to the next one. If it takes longer than a day, it doesn't matter. Then it should take 2 days or a week. Make it perfect. Make it so that it works, that it looks like a photo, and then move on. And a good way to train your skills is by recreating existing projects, because then you recreate photography, you recreate a capture of real life, and you learn a lot by doing so. So this is what I can recommend to you. And with this, we are at the end of the projects that we want to review, and now it's time for some inspirations. This is how we end the shows. By the way, folks, I give you feedback. You're always free to give me feedback as well. You know how in the beginning of Keeping It Realistic, we talk about news, events, stuff like this. If you're like, hey, we know all of this just makes the show needlessly long, then I will stop doing that. Same with this inspirational part in the end. I want to keep the show more interesting. I don't want to just start talking about reviewing your projects in the very first minute and end with a review in the very last minute, because I think this will make the show kind of monotonous, kind of boring, maybe too technical. And this is why I start with some recent events, news, tutorials, stuff like this. Then we review some projects up to 7, and then it's time for some inspirations that I hope are interesting to you, but let me know how you feel about it. Today, the inspirations will start with the biggest inspiration you could possibly have in life. Me. Now, you know me, you know that this is a joke, but the topic is actually a serious one, maybe. So I wanted to share something with you that I just started doing. And for this, we'll go a step back and I will ask you if you actually remember photo albums. I know some of you are actually quite young, so maybe the photo albums that you had growing up were only digital, but I'm sure that maybe your parents or grandparents definitely have some of the old school analog photo albums that you have seen. And I personally think that photo albums are quite cool, and this is why I was happy to read that they are currently making a comeback, and I can understand why. Because if you take a look at a photo album that, let's say, your grandparents show you, you will find out that the quality of the images in it is actually pretty solid. And this is kind of strange if you come to think about it, because the equipment that was used to take those photos was, let's say, less proficient and sophisticated than what we currently have in our common smartphones. But still, those photo albums, Virtue says I have a black and white photo album. This is great, man. This is exactly what I'm going to talk about today. So yeah, photo albums, how it worked was that people will take some photos, then bring the film to the photo studio. Then they will get the photos printed out, and they will take them, like usually it was 30 to 35 photos depending on the film. Then they will take the photos back home in an envelope, and then at home they will go through the photos and select only the best ones to put in the album. The rest that were not so good, they remained in this envelope by the photo studio. So you can say that those photo albums are kind of like a best of sampler of the photos. And this is why when we take a look at the photo album now, even though the equipment that made it possible was not so great as what we have now, the quality of the photos in those photo albums is pretty high. And I must admit that I miss this. I take a lot of photos, mostly with my smartphone, and then they end up in sorted folders on my internal and external drives. And sometimes my kids ask to see baby photos of themselves or the city that we used to live in, something like this. And then we go to the folders that I have and start going through the photos one by one. And while doing so, I sometimes see single photos when I think, well, this one is actually a pretty cool photo. I'm happy that I made it, but then we move on and I forget about this photo. I know that it exists somewhere, but it's a tedious and long process to find it once again, so I just let it be. And because I'm missing photo albums and I'm missing having access to those photos that I really like, the best of sampler, I decided to make a photo album. Not an analog one in a book, but a digital one on my page. And this is why I started the inspirational part here with showing you my page. Obviously, this is not a self-promotion. First of all, you know my page because I often show projects out of it, showing you this and that. And secondly, I gain nothing out of it because I have no ads, I have no tracking, analytics, statistics whatsoever. I wouldn't know if you go to check it out or not, but I wanted to show it to you in case you're interested in this, you can go check it out. Because it's not called a photo album, it's called Impressionen. This is the German word for impressions, as you may imagine. And once you click on it, you will actually find photos of mine and my digital photo album. It starts with, I told you last time, I'm a drone pilot now, so it starts with some 360 drone panorama that I took from Dillenburg, the city we currently live in, above our house, because I really, really liked the way. It was a cloudy day, but also a sunny one, so I really like how there are these splotches of light among the dark areas, and I decided to take this 360 photo. I really enjoy drone photography, and I hope that with times there will be more and more of it here. But the rest of the photos that you see here are just snapshots taken in different times of my life, in different cities and so on. And they're here for different reasons as well. So here you can say this is like one of those more kitschy images. This one I took with the drone. It's, like a postcard motif whatsoever. It just has a cool vibe to it. This is just a wet German evening city in the evening. I really like the mood here. There is a lot of inspiration to take out of this image. It's a great reference, and this is why I decided to bring it into this album. Here I really enjoy the framing. Obviously we have great natural framing here and so on. I don't want to circle jerk around my own images. I just wanted to show you. I also won't be talking about all of them. The thing is, these are not meant to appeal to anybody else rather than me. These are not for clients. I made them public because why not? I like them. If clients want to take a look at what kind of photos I'm taking, they're welcome to. Same as you, if you feel like you can get some inspiration out of this, you're very welcome to visit my page and go through those images. But why I'm showing you all of this is because I want to motivate you to actually do something similar. It doesn't matter if it's on your own page, if it's on Behance, or if it's on a specific folder on your drive. Just start taking photos. Remember, in the last phase of our work, we are actually photographers, virtual photographers. So taking photos is a must in order to get better in it. You heard every single photographer that was a guest at the Nikos show said, getting better in photography is done by taking more and more photos. And then just start taking photos and then sort them out and take the best ones and put them together in a place. In my case, this is my page. In your case, it could be whatever you want. And there are, again, different reasons to like an image. In this case, for example, I really enjoy seeing something that we actually try to avoid as much as possible as 3D artists, the color bleeding. You see we have some direct sunlight on this mini indoor trampoline, which is very saturated and which bleeds onto the ceiling and walls. And this is something which I actually like. It's a natural occurrence, so I captured it. And as you see, there are lots of photos. On this one, for example, I really enjoy the composition. I really enjoy the color scheme. We have complementary green and red. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I like the photos. You don't have to. You're always welcome to take a look at them. You see there are some personal ones, the portraits of my wife, my daughter, my elder daughter. But there are also shots that I took in a way that if this was an interior shot, I would take the shot in a way like you see here with the example of La Mer. And yeah, there are also other shots. They don't have to be, you don't have to, in order to take good photos or train your photography skills, you don't have to spend millions and travel all around the world. You can do it. You see this plant here, the Monstera. This is a plant which is literally behind the monitors and behind the camera right now. I just waited for a moment where there was some beautiful lighting, some beautiful tonal contrast, and took the shot. It didn't cost me a dime, right? So it's not about money. It's not about expensive equipment. It's just about training your skills, then putting all those images together for two reasons. First of all, as an inspiration, as a reference, but also as a mean of a self-esteem. Like you do some photos and maybe you take a look at them and you're like, hey, this time the reference is something that I made. It's not just some random pic from Pinterest. It's my photo. And again, there are many reasons to like a photo for. In this case, for example, I screwed up. It was in a circus. I made a photo, screwed it up, but it ended up having this very dynamic and energetic motion blur. And I kept it because I really, really like the energy of this photo. Carolina says, why avoid color bleeding? It's so important. It's absolutely the solu sharing among the objects in a scene, the soul. Well, the color bleeding is not. Clients don't like seeing it because obviously everything turns into this. Let's say we have this object here, but it makes the whole room look like as if it was colored in some slight pink. And if it's a white room and you want to depict a white room, your clients want it to look white and not slightly pink. This is the main reason. They want to have what they pay for and not some effects, even if they are natural. Anyway, again, if you feel like it, you can gladly visit this page and get inspired by it eventually. But what I want to mostly recommend you is to actually do something like this with your own photos, train your own photography, and then gather the best photos and become a better photographer. Because Carolina says, amazing photos, Theo, really inspirational. I'm so happy to hear that. Again, I literally sat down and said, I'll do this for me. I don't do this for clients. I do this to impress anybody. I didn't share this anywhere. I did this for me, but I wanted to share this with you today, hoping that you may also start doing something like this and start taking photos in whatever moment. Just take a look at this photo from my younger daughter. It was like after Halloween. I think she stumbled against something, started crying. Her makeup started flowing down, and suddenly it became a very dramatic photo, but I love it. It has a lot of emotion, so I wanted to keep it. And now I always have access to all of those photos, and believe me, I will keep expanding this library. And again, it's just for me, and I really love this one. This is a self-portrait with a drone. This is my first drone self-portrait. Anyway, you can take a look at them if you want to. I just wanted to share it with you. Tell me what you think, but not so much about my photos, but the general idea about making this virtual or digital photo album where you inspire yourself. I think this is a different kind of cool. My mom says very cool photos. Amit says totally cool photos. I'm very happy to hear that. But let me also know what you think about the idea. Amit says, I have my temporal photo folders with all sorts of photos that I like. Yeah, this is cool. If you can keep track on those, but I didn't. For the longest time, I didn't. It was just tons of photos in huge folders. They were again sorted, but the favorites, those interesting photos that are diverse and interesting and so on, they were never gathered in the same place as they are now. Okay, let's move on from me because it kind of became very Theo-centered, and let's talk a bit about Navid's work. It's I won't be reviewing this one. I just wanted to show it to you. It's consists of 3 images. The first one I find to be generally a beautiful scene, but very much overdone in terms of contrast. The second shot, however, is brilliant. We have this wonderful close-up. It's beautifully framed and composed with a lot of sensitivity to it. We have this great focus, and it's just a pleasure for the eyes. And the third shot looks very authentic, and I wanted to talk with you about the 3 main reasons, or the main reasons why. So first, it's the lighting. Navid really figured out this brute force, bold, strong sun lighting with strong dark shadows. He really rocks it and looks great. Secondly, it's the materials. As I told you before, that the materials and the lighting have to be very, very realistic for your images to look realistic. If the modeling isn't that great, you can hide this behind good materials and light. Right now, I'm playing Half-Life Alyx with a VR goggles in the evenings, and when you play something in VR, you get very close to walls and textures and so on, and you see how much of the things that you see aren't actual geometry, but just good textures that hide the lack of geometry. So good materials. If I had to have a ranking, I would say materials and lighting are in first place and the modeling is on the second place. Still, I want to encourage you to always have very detailed and good modeling, but lighting and materials I feel are more important. So yeah, what we have here are very realistic materials with cool imperfections, no repetitions. Again, repetitions immediately tell that something is a render and not a photo. Up to the point, like you see the wall behind me, I was considering buying some of those acoustic panel tiles and putting them behind me, and some of them have some pattern on them, and if you buy more of those, the pattern starts repeating. And looking at photos, these were real photos that people have taken for Amazon to show how, their wall made out of acoustic panel tiles turned out. And even the photos looked like renderings because of this texture repetition. So bad. Anyway, and now let's talk about randomness. We talked a lot about randomness on Carolina's project, but here we also see it very much, especially on those plants. When it comes to garden design, I very often see artists just doing some scattering, which is very symmetrical. And let me tell you, symmetrical scattering is usually typical for castles and for these huge gardens and stuff like this. But in real life, even if you try it, it doesn't work. Take a look at this photo. Obviously, the same plants have been planted on both sides of the walkway to the front entrance, but you see they turned out differently. Probably we have a big tree here, it's probably throwing some shadow on those plants. This is why they turned up smaller than these ones. There are reasons, but in real life, nature is random. Still, things are more random. If you want more photorealism, go for more randomness. Now let's move on to, because we talked about natural and organic looks, I want to show you a project from the VW Art Club. It's by Dushan, it's a villa in Greece. And take a look at this. So Greece is warm, it's actually hot in the summer. So it's normal that plants and soil kind of dry out. And this is what he depicted here. Despite this being a very modern, expansive villa, nature around it still is drying up. It's because it's organic, it's nature, it's the weather, that's it. Also, people here are probably tidy people who clean up after themselves, and still there are some small natural debris on the ground. We have some leaves, we have some small twigs and things like this. This is just normal, so don't hesitate having things like this. You see, there are even some leaves in the pool. Normal. Doesn't matter how clean you are, it's normal, but it makes your renders more realistic, more authentic, and just generally more relatable. Now there are further shots here that are great, but I wanted to concentrate more on the exterior. Now, you may say, okay, this work is looking great because this is this lush, expansive, modern villa, but I often don't work on objects like this. I work on very small interiors that are not so imposant as this one. Well, then let me show you this next project. It's by Kerem, and it's literally two chairs and a table. That's it, by the window. That's it. You see, we have here the beauty in simplicity. So it's the opposite of the previous scene. It's just nicely done. Every material looks as it should. There are some small details like these dried out fallen blossoms. We have some very casual looking compositions here, like, you know, the potted plant and some books next to it by the window, and then some really nice framings. And then if we compare the number of likes on those two shots, those two projects, you see this one has 165 likes and this one has 190 likes. So they're pretty close to each other, despite the one being just this small situation and the other one being this major lush villa. Now, let's take a look at a more elaborate work depicting something simple, in this case, a very non-luxurious situation, a work atelier. I don't know if you saw this project, but I really wanted to show this to you. It's by No Brand Studio, and it is just amazing. It shows some kind of a craftsmanship atelier. It's the opposite of glossy. You see, it's almost like partially even dirty and untidy, but it's just so realistic and so cool. The first shot resembles a shot taken with a camera flash, which really isn't especially great. And this goes in the direction of Carolina's work. I think, Carol, you like this one a lot. In order to achieve something like this, you need a real life reference, and then you need photos like this, because there you see how real life photos look like in order to be able to simulate them later in your render work. Yeah, all the other shots are just amazing. I absolutely love this set. Very realistic as well. Here we can once again see what kind of a powerhouse Corona renderer is. I don't say it as an ad or because this show is in collaboration with Chaos. You know, I love Corona. I myself am a user. I enjoy it just so much, and you can see how great, what kind of very realistic and great final results Corona can deliver. And speaking about Corona being a powerhouse, I gotta show you the last project for today. This is this project by Ramiz Varda. I don't know if you saw it. If no, it's the time. It's just an amazing one. It's not simply photorealistic. It has amazing storytelling. It's very cinematic. Just take a look at those details. Take a look at the car. Take a look at the street and the background. And again, these types of photos are the type of photos that you shoot yourself and put in your favorites library photo album, digital or analog, because you see they're not perfect. They are more into the direction of Carolina's work. They are more natural. So take your smartphone with you, and it doesn't matter if you are at home, in your office, on the way to work, on grocery shopping, and just take photos, because projects like this show how impressive they are. This project has more than 1,000 likes. So I think I hope this is convincing enough. You see, it's not perfect. It even breaks some of the compositional rules. It also doesn't have straight verticals, but it's like a very organic, natural photo, and it's just amazing. Will says, lovely renders, love them, rightfully so, I love them too. Obviously we have here great materials, wonderful car model, but also the surroundings, and again, the framing and the essence of this shot is very, very natural. And you get this by just taking photos. So, with this, my friends, we are at the end of today's show. Let me just remind you that in 2 days, Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. Central European Time, we have the next Chaos Campus live show with a great guest. So don't miss out on it. And with this, it was a pleasure hanging out with you as always. Have a good rest of the week. I hope to see you again in 2 weeks at the same place and time. Let me read what Amit has to say. We would like to have one session of live tutorial from you, Theo. Might be once every quarter. You can come up with some small tutorial live, like interior, exterior, lighting, materials, choosing right HDRI according to the mood, use of artificial lights, etc. Some tips and tricks which might help our friends in the group. What say, Theo? Is this doable? just like how Mike does, but a short session. However, the time allows you to interact. Well, I think that this is, I just wanted to say, this is more or less what Mike is doing. And given that he's been teaching for years, he's quicker and let's say call it even more professional in doing this because he's been doing it just more than me. Of course, I can show you stuff from time to time. I think that where my strength is, my main strength is, apart from doing my own work, is analyzing your works and helping you grow and learn from your mistakes and keeping the good parts of your own strengths. Nevertheless, we talked at some point about me talking about my own projects and you asking me all the questions that you want. You can do this always. If you want me to include a certain project or something that you want me to talk about or have questions about, we can do this in the group or just maybe suggest it in the group, and next time I can include it, and this could be one of the projects I talk about, and you can ask all the questions that you want. But yeah, I'll think about doing some tutorials, but of course we only have this time, so if I do a tutorial either on exterior or interior, we won't be able to talk about to provide you with feedback, and yeah, you hopefully won't be missing on this. I'll think about it. We can discuss this further in the group. Maybe I'll make a survey or something. You say any topic you can cover, whatever you feel, small one, whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, I'll think about it. I promise I'll think about it. So once again, thank you. As always, it was really a pleasure hanging out with you. Stay safe, be healthy, rock on, my friends. Ciao, see you in 2 weeks. Bye.